very subtle, very like furry and soft. And sometimes I cannot even locate it in like one area. It's more like the whole body is breathing. Sometimes I can feel it even on the skin, or just generally in the whole body, like the body expands a little bit and then shrinks back. But many times it's regular up and down feeling of the abdomen, but it's very smooth and soft, and there are like these little furs that do not have like a straight borderline, like where it finishes and where it starts. It's more like a little kitten's fur that just have all this different hair, and altogether they create the fur, but the little hair are one is longer, one is shorter, and they don't make a straight line. And when walking, I'm walking in the woods, so the terrain is not flat, so my feet touch the ground always in a different angle, and there are some stones and roots and branches and stuff like that. So I'm watching mostly the different muscles that stretch. I mean, the touching points of the feet are very strong. I can even walk barefoot there. We have already warm weather, so I'm barefoot. But many times the stronger sensation is not on the sole, but on the top of the foot or side of the foot, because the different muscle stretches, and I'm watching this muscle, and I'm trying to walk very slowly, because that helps me to put aside the thoughts. The sounds and smells and visions, they don't distract me. This is just a part of the secondary objects that I observe. But the thoughts are sticky sometimes, and they come back, and it's like a persistent thought that comes back, mostly one particular thing. And by slow movement, I can put it aside, because then I really know when if I'm on the touching point, or some movements of the leg or movements of the arms, or if I'm not. And if I'm walking a bit quicker, then I can lose it a bit more easily, because it's just like the movement is too quick to catch the little details.
That all?
That's all. And maybe at the end I would like to say that I really appreciate that I can be here. And I did a little comparison with the retreats I did before I had a household life, and these retreats after I have a family and kids and all that. And I noticed the big difference is that now I enjoy it much more. Before I was kind of like always thinking what else I could do instead of meditating, and now I'm enjoying not doing nothing, just observing. And it's the whole day is filled up with a lot of joy, because all I have to do is just watch, and all the other things I'm usually doing during a day are gone.
Yeah, you are understanding mindfulness, so you are shifting from meditation to mindfulness. So definitely it's a good trend. And so as far as the sitting is concerned, when you fixed on one object like rising and falling, more you observe, so more it become undiscernible, and boundaries are become lost, and ultimately you come to a boundless situation, and so usually it appears like a sign of weakening of mindfulness or weakening of concentration. But if it happened to number of times, you see, even you are diligent, even if you are mindful, the object is dissolving or losing the boundary, rather difference between rising and falling become equal. Both appear like similar, but we have a rejection. We have a difficult to understand. We have a phobia to understand such a different two things now slowly become equal. So therefore you have to be very patient and don't rush. Don't try to interpret it. Let the mind to observe it. But next day go prepared. Preparedness to what? From the delimited situation to no limits, no boundary situation. So this is a kind of evolution. It's a kind of a turning point in our thinking pattern. So that is what I gathered in your sitting meditation. And walking meditation, when you are walking in the wood, no shoes, ground is up and down, or bumpy, or not straight, not level. So still you can do, because you know you are in the wood. Exactly, even you are a householder. If you know that I am a householder, but I can observe it rather than getting involved and getting subjectively involved, you can just objectively observe. So this is endowment in human mind. In our evolution, we have self-observation, we can. But nothing you can see what you expect. Everything going to see is unexpected thing. So that make a beginner discouraged. That's why many people happy to be a concentration meditators than vipassana meditators. So concentration is giving some kind of a solace and good. But with concentration meditation, if you go to vipassana, unforeseeable things can happen. Unpredictable thing can happen, but if you going to see the mindfulness, not necessarily mindfulness is inflicted. Mindfulness is affected. So that is the fact. You must have some inferential knowledge, deductive knowledge, go prepared. Then you prepare the mindset to observe them and not to react them. And then I think you understand yourself. Then you love yourself. You have well-being towards yourself. Otherwise you are escaping. Otherwise you are in a dream. Otherwise you are in a fantasizing. But this is happening, but don't rush. Let it happen again and again. And then you can understand why other people are behaving like that. They can't interpret what they are observing. They are doing something and expecting something. So in Vipassana only, we go prepared. So, main task, your main responsibility must be to facilitate this situation without having so much of expectation, but practice regularly. Then the difficult thing can happen. And not only you, even the surrounding people can understand such a change. Where at the beginning it is painfully slow, but once gather the momentum, it's a enormous momentum can gather. Maybe that is what happening now in Jauria. Happening together with Jan.
Yes, Bante, I know exactly what you're saying. And the comparison that goes in my head is that the nature is a very good teacher of all this, because since I'm in the woods, there are a lot of animals around. And if you try to see them, you won't see them. Their senses are much more sensitive than ours, so they would see you earlier and run away. But if you just sit and watch, then they suddenly come. And I have a neighbor that's a little mouse, and it's right. It has a hole right next to my sitting place, and it always shows up when I quiet down and brings some nuts and eats next to me. And when I start to move, then of course it's gone. And I even had a deer coming to see me, and it was like 20 meters near me. And since I wasn't moving, I just opened my eyes because I heard the walking on the leaves. it stayed there for like 10 minutes and was just grazing and looking at me and nothing. And similarly, it is in the meditation. If you just sit and watch, things are interesting because all the colors and all the notions in the body, all the movements in the body, they are full of different phenomena that you can observe. And similarly, the forest is full of life. You just need to be silent, because even the little ants, you don't see them if you're far away. But if you look close to the ground, you see the lines of ants, and it is very connected with my meditation.
So when you are calmed down, world is calmed down, animals are calmed down, then you can communicate with them. But if you are disturbed and try to chase them out, you will never see wild animals. You can go to the zoo and see animals, not in the not in the wilderness. So when I go to the West, I see like a zoo.
Yes, yes.
Everything is caged. Everyone is have their own role model, and I am a wild boy. I go there. So therefore, once in a way, you must have that. So you must have a family. You must have a walking in the unprepared ground. As far as you know, you can gather, but that is the main thing is prepared mind. Okay, we are moving.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhante.
Hello, Bhante. This is Peter.
Welcome.
Hi. So, yeah, I took your advice and did more walking meditation than sitting meditation yesterday. I noticed the changing of pressure on the sole of my feet and the kind of stickiness of the skin when it touches the wooden floor here. And I also noticed my posture, my standing posture, like mainly like the tilt of my pelvis, so that I'm not hunched over, but keep my back straight. And yeah, I also noticed kind of groundedness, like stability when I turned around and stood in one place. I noticed that that still like distractions tend to happen. I get lost in thought for certain periods of time, but yeah, after a while I come back to the main primary meditation object. There's quite a bit of pain during sitting meditation, but also sometimes in walking meditation in my shoulders and neck. I try to just note it. Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, in walking that you feel, you try to explain about the grounding or become earth. But imagine your two legs are working like a wheel, rotating wheel. So if you look at the rotating wheel, how much little fraction is touching the ground? It may be 1/100th of the periphery, and it's ever touching, but it's rolling. As it rolls, the spokes or radius is changing one to the other. So Buddha is explaining the walking meditation is like a turning wheel, and you have to pay attention to the power transmitting axis, power transmitting radius, and accordingly he says ekaro. Ara means the radius, and ekaro, one thing at a time. One radius is working and it is shifting to the next one, shifting to the next one. When we are walking, only two legs doing the same thing. So there is no grounding as such, but there is a grounding as such. Wheel is rotating. So in Satipasala website, if you go there and see walking meditation and Ekaro video, we put that into a few minutes example or few minutes lesson to look at. Then you can see how the heel is transferring the weight to the middle part, middle of the foot, and then to the toes, and then that leg is about to bend, the other leg is going to take the weight, and then how shifting and things are happening. So what a balancing happening while you are walking. So you can understand it's an acrobat to walk, just like a four-legged animal. The humans, they stand up and then start walking. So you don't know when you are walking so much of alignment, so much of things are happening. In walking meditation only you try to understand how legs are working. It's a kind of a loving kindness to yourself. And in sitting, you feel some pain and kind of thing. You feel some abnormal thing and see when the pain happens, when something abnormal happens, are you become more mindful or less mindful? More diligent or less diligent? More vigilant or less vigilant? Completely different thing happens. So therefore, they comes by their own way. When it is happening, we usually try to avoid them. We try to expect the perfection without this kind of mishaps. But if you look at the attention, look at the diligence, vigilance, mindfulness, and you can see whenever the danger happens, you are more alert. The day you understand how to be on the ball, how to ride the wave, they are no more inflicting. They come and remind you, or you bring it back to your home. No rooms for wandering and daydreaming. So you may understand, as I try to mention, try to share with you all, you select a particular kind of a distraction, and that is more frequent than other distraction the other fellow meditators are reporting. So your character is connected with kind of a distraction. So your distraction indicate who you are. Distractions are indicating your dispositions and tendencies. So therefore don't look at it in a bad way. Don't try to push them out, but just give a fair chance, choiceless awareness, evenly suspended attention. Then you can understand your distractions are your choice. You select it. And then that is pre-decided. It is not in this moment. So therefore you can understand the underlying tendencies, how it is working. It is happening more in distractions than in mindfulness, in primary object. So therefore distraction don't inflict more as you become mindful and once you understand the meaning of mindfulness. So continue it and don't invite distractions, but you must know how to make use the distractions, and that is not the beginner's job. That's someone who knows mindfulness can make use distraction in a positive way.
Thank you. Also, I remembered one more thing that during the sitting meditation, there's quite lots of various sensations that kind of I can pay attention to. And it's not easy to really determine which one is the dominant one. And so if I kind of try to then jump from sensation to sensation, I then get kind of distracted more easily.
So rather call it as a distraction, you are changing from one distraction to many, many distractions. So many, many distractions are called as a flux. Everything is in a flux. You can't see the boundaries. But they are not fighting each other, but our mind is fighting with that. I better have only one thing at a time and I can observe it, but what the hell that now everything is happening and coming and going and kind of thing. So you have to change as the mindfulness increasing from the one single object, pointedness, to the multiple things, and ultimately the day you understand the flux, the day you understand the tapestry, the system as such, that tapestry never changing. So always in a flux. That means that impermanence nature is permanent phenomena. Understand? Impermanence is permanent.
Yes.
So then where you only,
Yes, that's very helpful.
you never get senile, you never get old age. Phenomena is phenomena. You are very young, you are very robust, because the flux is always robust. Flux is no beginning, no middle, no end. It's a continuity. So it's a kind of electricity. It's a kind of a quantum field. Anything can happen. This is the initial root. This is the initial source of energy. Don't consider it as a bewilderment. Don't consider it as a lost. Don't consider it as a exhausting thing. Try to be with it. Then you will never get corona. Sure.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful, Bhante.
Hi, Bhante. This is Samran. So, yeah. Well, first of all, I really appreciated the instruction about honest reporting, and I think it would help me a lot in some of my previous retreats. So I had some experiences that happened before, but I think I was never able to really clearly report them. And I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do it now, but I'll try. So yesterday I went for a walk and I was aware of this mental state of loneliness and also of the heaviness. So I was watching how I have to how my mind, when it sees the rock, wants to sit down, and when I sat down, I felt like this heaviness, and it felt as if it was in my body. It's very common for me, but it felt that there were also like emotions actually, so like despair, hopelessness, like really heavy emotions. So each time I sat down, it helped a bit to like calm down. Also because your comment before about this dullness, that actually it may be helpful, and it felt like this. So there was this kind of balance, and I was watching my more and more the kind of monologue inside my head about like thinking about the first thing was actually reflecting on the honesty part. So I noticed that the mind, it feels like it's concealing something. So there's no honesty between like the parts of the mind, or at least there's one belief that the truth has to be concealed. Because there's an assumption that this truth is scary. And I'm guessing this is this has to, to do something with my like development of character and so on. But there was this memory from previous retreats, how freeing it is to be like transparent for the mind and fully honest. And so there was this like liberating perception of being like part of nature, like everything is transparent and just like cause and effect. So that was helpful. And later I started to noticing more and more how I am. So how part of my mind is talking to some kind of imagined Bhante Dhammajiva and planning the reporting, and some part of the mind started to letting go of it. Of like it felt like something is false. Like I was really believing that there's a like Bhante, and I'm here and I'm talking to him. So something felt like really false and wrong with this. So I started to let it go, even though it felt like I have to do this because this is meditation. like this, this internal monologue. And I also noticed, so there was like this progressive relaxing of this first person voice, but also I noticed that there was this loneliness, how it was like setting up the situation, that I felt like guilt that I don't understand the instructions because I wasn't sure what's my primary object. But actually, I was checking that I was aware. So I realized that this is this kind of loneliness, sankhara, or however I can call it, playing out. That like the setting up this pattern that I am somewhere distant and I'm missing something. There's the Bhante and the Sangha, and it's not able for me to be understood. So I realized that this is part of this habit, like how I set up the situation. How this kind of loneliness works in a way. So I was reflecting still on the where is this? The mind wanted to locate the source of the problem, so to say, in this situation, source of the confusion, and it was trying to see that I'm not actually talking to Bhante in my mind. It's all just, the aloneness. It's just my mind, but it didn't work. And then another question came up, which was like, who is lonely? And then it worked better. So it felt like there was a nudge to answer the question, but I felt like it started some kind of process and I didn't have to answer it intellectually. So it felt kind of right, even though I was knowing less intellectually, if it makes sense. Okay, and then this is where it starts kind of weird. So I was getting back to the center, and I found a piece of bark, and I felt like one part of my mind wanted to grab it and as a gift to my wife, but then there was strong voice heard, like to let it go. And I remember that I had this voice in my previous retreats, and I was like examining the quality of it, and it was really decisive, like to let it go. And the other part felt like, no, I have to give it to my wife. It's going to be good, like a gift. But I felt that the quality behind the, wanting to get the bark was like a possessive. It's like I wanted to grab to something familiar, and the other part was like to let go everything, to completely drop everything. And I kind of followed this voice, and I went back to the center, and then I still all the time I was feeling this that the heart is closed and there was a fear, but I was just like observing that, and that's when I started to see was like clarity, very like unpleasant emotions going through my body, and the fear was really present. And I recognized the state, that I had the state a number of times in my retreats. And on one retreat, when I was trying to interpret it somehow, it went really wrong because I thought I was going crazy. But on another retreat, actually, it led to letting go of this scared feeling. So I was kind of encouraged to keep watching it, even though there was like strong urge to interpret this as like I'm getting crazy, because I was seeing a lot of sensations in my body, and I was also witnessing a lot of thoughts, which felt strange. So it subsided when I took a shower, but okay. And before when I was really scared, there was a lot of fear. I remember the image from my previous retreats, that when like a ship in the center of the storm at night, and in the middle of the ship there's a lantern with a candle, which is like the mindfulness, and it felt like this. So even though I thought I was going crazy, there was this I was checking that underneath these sensations there was a body actually was relaxing, the knees were kind of relaxing progressively, and there was this calmness of the mindfulness. So then I realized that actually maybe what's going on is I started to witness the craziness of my like ordinary mind, which was really strange. Later, I also closed my eyes and like let the dullness catch up, like just I allowed the urge to go to the dullness, and I was witnessing the stream of consciousness of different thoughts and associations, and I was able to notice that some of them were brilliant, like the genius automatic associations, and again later I just realized that it was just witnessing my normal stream of thoughts, even though at the time I thought it's like completely crazy what's going on. Okay, so this is the first part, and the sorry for it's a bit long, but I don't know what's really important here. Everything feels important, and the other part is that afterwards I realized that this whole thing, I was witnessing this kind of unwholesome state of mind that's really common for me, this kind of loneliness. And I realized that this is also, I recalled that there was no metta at all, and the heart was closed. And I realized that there's something I have to put into experience in the first place that is creating this scary kind of word, right? That like this initial intention. So the mind was reflecting that I can either witness being driven by this kind of unwholesome sankhara, which is wholesome in itself, the observing, but the mind started to wonder whether I can not be in it in the first place. So I was, and it happened today as well. I was during the walking meditation. I was like hesitant to get into what you call meditation, which is like this forceful action, and for me this is very forceful. And I was the first step. I noticed how much force I am putting, like I am forcing my mind to go there to this first step, and I stopped, and I just the mind noticed this heaviness and this pain, and there was like this internal cry a little bit, like recognizing the suffering of that. Okay, so to go towards the finish, today I was doing pretty much the same. So just trying to catch my mind when it starts with this assumption that, well, I caught it actually a couple of times, that there's this unknowingness, which is stressful. And the first interpretation is that there's something wrong with me. And there's a kind of guilt and shame, and and then there's restlessness, and I have to do something. I have to find the mindfulness, and this is what starts the whole cycle. So even though the cycle is unwholesome, I can find the mindfulness within that cycle, and this is what I wanted to ask about, whether my understanding is correct, that I can be within some kind of unwholesome sankhara and kind of spark the light of mindfulness from within. But so what happened today was the other way around. So I was watching not to get into this kind of world, this lonely world, and I was noticing this drive a couple of times, and then some wholesome memories arose. So one was like memory of me as a young child doing something really happy when I was like gluing the plastic planes, and I was seeing the happiness that I really don't remember at all. This kind of happiness when the mind wasn't burdened. And then there was some memory of some very kind act that one teacher made towards me, and that was really moving. And there was like a lot of like crying, really kind of automatic. And once the crying subsided, there was this urge to go back to the watching and the usual way I do the mindfulness meditation. But there was a strong kind of disgust towards the discursive thought. And I just laid down, and I felt that what was in the crying was it was like a calling of a there was a love and the silence and at the same time. So some like Brahma Viharas, and I went towards that. And that's when I remembered what you mentioned and all the suttas about like Vipassana and Samatha going hand in hand. So that was like, so what's interesting is that it had the same like momentum of letting go and surrendering and renunciation that I had the previous day when the mind was still thinking. But then now it was really silent, and it also had this kind of like a healing, healing quality of it felt like there is some understanding then there in the samatha, but it's non-verbal. It's like the different parts of the mind are meeting in a way, and there is some understanding going on, but it's impossible to put in words. And yeah, it felt like I recalled I was reading a sutta when the Buddha was talking about a strange, like uncommon situation when during Satipatthana the second jhana happens, right, automatically. And there was this comment that this is unusual, but this is what happens sometimes in Satipatthana, that like there's dropping of the discursive thought. So this was just like a post hoc reflection. Okay, that was really long. So, but I think that the key questions were there. So yeah, thank you again for really great instructions.
Yeah, basic thing is you are opening and you are reporting, and I am very happy on that. And the second thing is the early part when you are reporting about maybe the past events. Your mind is now to understand the me and not me boundary. Whenever me is there, you think mindfulness is there, you know what is happening. When the not me happens or losing the boundary, you have the fear. And you think when you are losing the boundary, you cannot be mindful. And you think mindfulness is happening only when I am here and now, or I can me. But the mindfulness is much diversified. You can see. And to the latter part, you try to understand some maybe unwholesome situation, or all of a sudden mind goes to the unknown states and feel like a stress, feel like stressful. And then you feel like come to the present moment and have some tangible, touchable thing in the mindfulness. And what I thought was to share with you, even when you are in unknown, even when you are in the lost situation, mindfulness is there. But you assume, no, there is not mindful. To have the mindfulness, I have a concrete object, I have a breath, I have to have a body. But no, mindfulness can exist even when you are sleeping. So this is the way, what I thought, but I don't think by one discussion or one instruction your thing will be sorted out. But we have to keep on, have this free association and counseling kind of thing. It will helpful. So I will give a small story. When I come across this kind of a situation, my teacher was Venerable Dhammika from Australia, and one day it happened him to meet Krishnamurti. And he went illegally to the meeting, and he was talking, and Venerable Dhammika was sitting behind, and he told you must be completely compassionate, full of love, and doing nothing. Then he says, Venerable Dhammika says, I feel like something wrong. So I excused and asked, how can you be compassionate and doing nothing? Then the Krishnamurti looked at the newcomer, and he had a very nice smile and says, doing nothing is compassion. But we have loneliness. We have loneliness. We think not doing nothing is no mindfulness, no meditative object, no concrete thing. So therefore you feel like running back to the body and the concrete thing. Like the day you understand that doing nothing is the best help you can do, and it's full of compassion. But our mind read it as lonely. Instead, if you use the term aloneness, you are alone And you can ask from the mind, am I mindful? Or am I lost? Am I boundless? Am I in a dangerous situation? So this is the thing you are confronting now. You have to go prepared. Many events will happen and you will fall into big trouble. That trouble is once you understood how to communicate that with the other people. No one will believe. No one will believe. So therefore don't worry about that. Just face this as such. Go with your regular timetable and confidence without any expectation. Even doing nothing, even you lost, even you in a unknown situation, just see whether mindfulness is there. Then you will understand me and not me boundary also. You can be mindful. You human are the only being can understand me and not me boundary. That understanding is very intellectual. So therefore one day you will ready to give up. Private and confidential. You think everything is universal. I am just exposing myself. And then I don't call it as meditation. I call it as mindfulness. This is what it happens. So this revelation, expression and opening is a healing process. So don't rush, go slow. It is happening.
Yes, thank you, Bhante. I would also add that there's not just loneliness, but when I am kind of in aloneness mode, I also feel more exposed. So this is also threatening and something I have to notice that usually I would like shut down. And regarding the unknowingness, I recognize how today when doing the walking, there's some voice that wants to appropriate this experience. And this is what my usually meditation is look like. But before there was experience as well. And then there's this voice who wants to grab it and call it like his experience. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bhante.
Hello, Bhante. This is Gabi.
Yes, now I can hear.
Okay, so let me give you my report. I've been enjoying walking meditation much more than sitting. I feel like there are endless possibilities on how to observe walking. So I tried also observing the soles. I tried to observe the whole body, observing my back and my spine was also very interesting. And even there were visual distractions. It was easy for me to come back to the object of meditation. So walking was it felt very nice for me, but sitting has been very difficult. I've been experiencing sleepiness and dullness, and also when I'm on the primary object and I catch myself having my mind wandering, it's somehow easy to realize that, but then I start to analyze what was going on and also my whole mental state, and I just start to analyze it too much, and I get caught up in these thoughts too much. So coming back to the primary object is the most difficult thing for me. And at that point, I have to make a lot of effort, and there has to be some kind of strong decision that, yes, I'm going back to the primary object. So this is the point which I'm struggling with. And also I noticed that I am sensitive to the sounds. mostly human-made sounds, and I'm not sure if I should observe when it's happening, like someone is entering the room. I'm not sure if I should observe that, or should I go to the primary object? Because what happens is that when I hear this kind of sound, I feel very vulnerable and too sensitive. And this is what also is a problem in normal life. So now I enjoy being alone and focused here on the retreat. But yeah, I'm happy about it. But there is this, this wish to maintain some kind of feeling of being centered, so I'm not so sensitive. Yeah, so this is probably it.
Yeah, so that as far as you reporting sitting and walking different, just see how can you discriminate sitting posture and the walking posture. You can understand sitting posture, what are the touching points, and the walking posture, what are the touching points. I mean, it is very obvious. So therefore, don't expect much difference. While walking, do you ask yourself, how do you know that I am not sitting? How do you know that I am not standing? How do you know I am not lying down? Then it will give you the evidence. When you are sitting, ask yourself, are you sure that you are not walking? Are you sure that you are not standing? Are you not sure that you are not lying down? Then how do you know that you are sitting? So that is the starting point. Whatever the posture, you just see the difference. It is always comparative. And coming to the sitting posture, you mentioned about at a time it is very sleepy and it is a dull situation. At a time, so much of thoughts, sometimes sounds. So we recognize thoughts means too much of energy, dullness is lack of energy. So it is going up and down, and together in between you have the primary object. The mind is not much happy with the primary object, either go to the thoughts or either go to the sleepiness, and you take the primary object as your pivotal point or the benchmark. See how the mind is jumping from one to the other, and that very observation, even if it is sleepy, even if it is dull, you can be mindful, you can be aware how the sleepiness sets in, how the dullness sets in, and it's happening not accidentally, it's happening very slowly. And occasionally if you can bring back the mind to the primary object, you can see another perspective. So whenever the sounds happen, for your situation still, you have to appreciate your primary object rather than the sound. So whenever time permits, whenever it is mature, bring slowly to the primary object, let the mindfulness establish, let the mindfulness be familiar, and slowly you will understand how to deal with sounds, how to deal with thoughts, how to deal with the sleepiness and dullness. So therefore, you have to get the balance, you have to get the steadfastness of the mindfulness. And once it happens, the other distraction what you reported could be easily tackled. So therefore, good that you gave fair enough time for walking, because walking is the pacemaker between complete sleepiness and complete sitting and day-to-day activities, or complete sluggish nature or complete inactive nature. So you have to do walking, and soon after the walking, just go and sit without disturbing the mind, and see how do you know the difference in walking posture and the sitting posture. Then you will understand mind is always verifying things. When we are walking, mind is verifying that I am not sitting. When it is sitting, mind is verifying that I am not walking. It is called proprioception. So now you give a chance. Proprioception is your inbuilt character. But you make sure. That's the way you get grounded. And the thoughts will give a different homework. Sounds will give different homework. Sleepiness will give different homework. Whenever these things are not distracted, you just simply come back to the primary object. You understand it or difficult?
Yes, thank you, Bante.
Welcome.
So hello, Bante. This
Hi.
is Claudia. I think things got very, very, very messy and chaotic, but I will try to report, even though I'm not sure I will be able to make some sense out of it. So as you recommended to us yesterday, I tried to see whether it's easier to notice or to catch when I'm mindful or when I'm not mindful. So at the beginning, it seemed quite easy or rather easy that in walking meditation, it was much easier to see when I'm not mindful, when the mind is distracted. In sitting meditation, however, it was much more natural or easier to see when the mind is mindful. And even though there are some sounds or some sensations or thoughts coming, but still there is a level of mindfulness. So it's only like changing the level of mindfulness. Sometimes maybe 10%, sometimes maybe 90%, but the mindfulness is mostly there. So I thought like, well, but that's interesting. Well, how such a difference? So I noticed that actually there is one big difference, that the sounds, actually at the beginning of the so-called distraction, there is a sound or a sensation or a sight, but that alone is still just perceived. It still can be within the mindfulness, but then it triggers the thinking process, and that already then the mind slips away. And in a walking meditation, the sounds and also the sights, they actually create craving, or that the mind wants actually to perceive, wants to indulge in nice sounds and nice seeing. So actually it's more difficult to catch the mind wandering off. But in sitting meditation, the sounds and all the other secondary objects, they create more like aversion, like a kind of distraction. And because I'm like angry temperament, I'm more sensitive to the aversion. So it's much easier. So the mindfulness would catch the aversion and would not let it so easily to go into the thinking. But then when watching or when doing this in walking and sitting meditation, the mind got very interested and really started to watch more closely all the processes. And actually it was just like, it's not a big difference. It's the same in the walking meditation and in the sitting meditation, that there is always some level of the mindfulness. It's just like surfing on a wave or floating on a wave. It's just shifting the level according to the distraction, how much the mind really wants to enjoy the distraction or indulge in it. And then the process, it is already kind of fast, and the changes are fast, but it even fastened up. And then in one sitting meditation, I could feel how the tsunami is coming, because the meditation process usually is just like a washing cycle. So at the beginning, it's just like left, right, and then it starts to speed up and squeezing. The centrifuge starts, and that's the challenge to keep the mindfulness. And this time I could feel like, oh, this is going to be really very strong, and hopefully the mindfulness can sustain. And then it started to be very messy, and it started like just to fall apart. And it's really very difficult to describe, because it's like nothing, like the mind couldn't really label anything or hold on to anything. It was just like not really clear whether it's mindful or not mindful, whether it's hard or soft, then there was this thought like, oh yes, mind is just crashing down. It's like completely messy and just out of order. But then this thought by itself brought even more awareness to the process. And then there was another thought like, no, the mind is very stable and peaceful and calm, and it's sane. It's working properly. It's just like all the sensations and all the events and all the phenomena that are going on, they are so crazy and it's so fast, and it's just really it's just not possible to distinguish whether it is left or right or mindful or not mindful. And it's just, but still the awareness of the mindfulness is continuously there. And it was very confusing, because also there was this feeling that yes, it is really a tsunami. It's a really very crashing, very strong force on the mind. But at the same time, it was like very relaxed and very nice and peaceful. And but slowly, like after, then the mind starts to put all these pieces together only after. But while it was happening, the mind was kind of lost in a way that it was not able to describe it to itself in any words, but yet there was the feeling that it is aware of everything that is going on, even though it cannot be named, it cannot be described by anything. So that was the main experience.
Yeah, that you can't label them, you can't recognize them, but you experience it. That is how we label perception. Whenever you noticed and labeled and kind of thing, it become dead and gone. But something you cannot label, something new, is something the mind has to figure it out. So keep it as open as possible without labeling good or bad. And you try to explain that whenever the desire arises and distraction arises, both of them are just titillating the mind and shaking the mind. Ultimately, you lose the desirability or distracting nature. You see the mind is changing. So likewise, when you observe the rising and falling of in-breath and out-breath, as you continue, they become immediate. No difference between the rising and falling. No difference between in-breath and out-breath. No difference between the left leg and right leg. It is not a loss of your taste. It is not a weakness in your mindfulness. That mindfulness understand all the the personal nature. It's a you see only one pixel, but when you see the tapestry, whole thing, everything having the same character. That's called natural characteristics. So it is a very short period from the individual characteristic to the natural characteristic happen. Again come to the individual characteristics, again go to the natural characteristics. So that is how left brain and the right brain is changing. So just let it happen. As you started telling that it is confusing and distracting, I feel very happy. When something new happens and you keep on practicing, that means your mind is ready to accept both the chaotic situation as well as the very discrete, very specific conditions. So these things are real fertilizing, really giving the food for the development. So don't rush to conclude telling that this is good or bad. You are on the process. So even the calmness and the stable situation is inviting distractions. Whenever the distraction happens, underneath the distraction there is a calmness. There is a stability. So let it happen. Don't claim this as my experience. Claim this as a distance observer. You are not yet to give a commentary. You are just observing. Increase the observation and reduce the inference. Continue like Claudia.
Yes, Bhante, thank you. Okay.
Welcome.
Hello, Bhante. This is Michał. Yesterday, I've got a few things to report. I try to compress them as much as possible. So first, yesterday after lunch, there was this urge to go and have a nap or just rest, so everything will, so the stomach will digest food a bit. And instead of doing that, I decided to, well, maybe I will have a rest, but first I want to see what will happen if I will just watch this urge to rest. So I did some walking for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then I've noticed that it is not so much that that I want to rest or that I want to nap. It's more that the mind is really bored and wants to have its fun or its pleasure in resting or napping or just being not mindful. Then there comes another observation about sleepiness. So then after the Dhamma talk, there was a similar urge to go and have a nap or just at least go to the room and do some lying meditation and see and observe the sleepiness or the possible sleepiness. So I did, and when I was on the bed, at some point there was like this sleepiness momentum gathering, and then at some point there was like an image that the mind interpreted in some visual way, but it was like really an abstract, not meaningful image, a flash of light, together with a flash of like this sleepy pleasure, and it was like so intense that I couldn't just follow it anymore, and just laughed because it was like a nimitta of sleepiness or of sleep, that if I would grasp this image, I would go to sleep immediately. So then I laid observing what happens next, and then I fell to sleep. So after some time, I woke up. I must add that like sleep is not an object of remorse for me. So if I happen to sleep during the practice or whatever, it happens. So I woke up, and then I was like, at the end, so the mind got better of me and just dragged me into this sleep. And then I thought like, okay, I had this idea, another pleasurable idea, but not only pleasurable, but useful idea of having a cup of coffee. And so at the same time, I was to choose whether to follow this pleasurable but useful idea or not. So I decided to not to push too much and just go and have this cup of coffee. And after that, I started walking. I've walked for about half an hour, and during that time, there was like a rush of ideas. All were very pleasurable, but I didn't really want to grasp any of them or follow any of them, because I knew I would be lost in like dwelling on those particular ideas. And so I just kept walking slowly and with the eyes down. And after some time, one pointedness arose as to observing the soles of the feet and what is happening as secondary objects, and then if with each foot touching the ground, there was a feeling of like stepping out of the pleasureness, because like all or most of the secondary objects arising were very pleasurable, but I did not really want to interfere with them or touch them out of because I didn't want to lose the mindfulness. So each touch of the food, even though it was neutral in feeling, it had this certain non-pleasurableness. I'm on the verge of saying it was unpleasurable, but it wasn't. It was just not as pleasurable as those secondary objects, but I kept like pushing out of this pleasurableness, and then a lot of pity started to arise, and the secondary objects pretty much fell away, and I was walking with a certain sense of excitement and bliss, and at the same time the sense of self started to dissipate, and there was at the time there was like certain blissfulness and certain sense of just hearing, just seeing, just sensing, and then certain dose of fearfulness arose, and I kind of know that fearfulness from previous retreats, it sometimes occurs in situations like this, and this fearfulness pretty much kept me out of staying with just hearing and just seeing and so on, because it was like this feeling of getting crazy without getting crazy, like losing oneself. So what I saw is like there's not enough stability. There's bliss, but there's not enough stability to carry on this observation. So still, walking very mindfully and carefully, I went upstairs to the Dhamma hall to sit and see whether I can gather some more stability, and in that way do away with or let the fear fall away, or let the fear stay as secondary object, but not as intense as to interfere with other objects. And so I've sat, and even though fear subsided a bit, there was not enough of stability for me to carry on like this intensely. So instead I started to walk. It was like an hour later pretty much. I started to walk, but this time I was walking slowly, but with the eyes forward. And well, there is an observation in that this process was both with having a coffee, and both with like stopping the first part of the walking blissful and bit selfless walking, that I like took a step back to establish some other factor that was needed to go forward. And in that sense, I saw there is like this seesaw pattern to the practice, like going 2 steps forward, but then going 1 step back to check whether everything is okay, or to establish the factors that were missing. So yeah, this is pretty much all.
Yeah, they are in a cyclic pattern. At a time forward, positive light, and at a time backward, negative and darkness kind of thing. So when you keep on practicing, these cycles become less amplitude. Early cycles are very big. Slowly amplitude reduces. That is the maturity in meditation. Don't decide whether it's negative or positive, unstable or stable. So they are 2 parts of the same thing. And more you practice in a one session, more you understand they are changing, but amplitude is reducing, so that it's easily graspable, easily under control. So continue to do like that, and let the mind to be seasoned to this cyclic pattern.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, I think we are towards the end of the session.
Yeah, it's thank you very much, Bhante.
Welcome.